I was working for a fruit and veg delivery service. I would drive to my boss's house to go pick up my truck. Then I would drive to the warehouse, where each run was on each pallet. There were 4 other delivery drivers who worked for the company. There were 7 runs, but 4 franchises. The franchise I worked for had 2 runs, but thankfully they were only relatively small. After doing a stock take on all the stock and loading up the truck, I was on my way. This particular day was an average kind of day. It wasn't quiet and it wasn't busy, it was moderate. Now, I had pulled out onto one of the main roads that would lead me to where I needed to go. On this road, there are a lot of roundabouts, which meant the truck would sway a little, back and forth. I had just come through a smaller roundabout, and because the turn was more jagged, the truck swayed fiercely. All of a sudden, I heard a loud thud come from the back of the truck. One of the worst things could have happened, and I looked out my passenger side rear view mirror, and all I could see was my fruit and veg boxes falling out the back side of the truck. The door had flung open. I swear I checked it was locked before I started driving. Obviously it wasn't locked in properly. I started to panic, and I quickly pulled over to the side of the road and put my hazard lights on. This was something I knew I had to deal with. I got out and assessed the damage. I had lost half of the stock, some stuff salvageable, some not. I called my boss and told him what had happened. Surprisingly, he wasn't angry. He told me to deliver what I could, and I'd have to deliver what I couldn't the next day. I was happy with that plan. I wrote out a list of the addresses I couldn't deliver to that day, and I delivered them the next day. I was working for the same company and working the same similar shift. I had gone and picked up the truck, loaded it up, and I was on my way. I was driving along the same main road that led me to where I needed to go. I was driving along and I knew everything was sweet. I knew that I had double-checked everything in the back, so I was all good. But then, out of nowhere, a big huntsman spider came running out from behind the passenger side sun visor and onto the inside of the windscreen. It scared the crap out of me. It was massive in size, and I really wanted to pull over and get rid of it. But as I was approaching a big intersection that consisted of traffic lights and 4 lanes of traffic, I had to turn right. I couldn't pull over. The lights were red, but I didn't have enough time to physically get out of the truck and get it out. This spider was running rampant all over the dash and everything. I was freaking out. The traffic lights turned green, so I was able to drive again, but I had to change lanes so I could pull over. Of course, other drivers wouldn't let me into the outside lane, but as soon as I could though, I pulled over and I jumped out of the truck as quickly as possible. I had grabbed the run sheet to use to remove the spider before I got out. I went around to the passenger side door and opened it. The spider was on the inside of the door now, and I flicked it out with the run sheet. I quickly closed the door and ran for joy back to the driver's side and got back in and started off again. I really do not like spiders. I was working for the same company, but this time I was working night shift. Now instead of delivering fruit and veg, I was delivering milk and bread, meals and all kinds of dairy and bakery products. The night shifts were a lot busier, and the shifts went for a lot longer, as you technically weren't allowed to start delivering until after midnight. Because my first drop was a fair way away from the depot, it killed a lot of time beforehand, so I got away with starting a little early sometimes. The first few customers didn't mind. I had got halfway through my shift, and I had finished the first run, and I was now starting the second run. Everything was all good for the next half an hour, until I got to a certain street. I had a few drops on that street, and as I stopped to do the first one, I got out, pick and packed, and then I went and delivered the stock to the door. As I was walking back towards the truck, I noticed a man was standing there. The back door was open and it was lit up, so I could easily see the man from where I was standing. I kind of hesitated because I didn't want to approach him. It was 2:30 a.m. in the morning. I didn't know what this guy's intentions were. I had no choice. I had to go back to the truck because it was still running, so I approached the man. "Hey, what's this for?" "I work for a home delivery service." "Oh, how do I go about this then?" I told him the company name and the website and to place an order online. "No, I mean about getting a job." "Oh, I don't think there's any jobs going at the moment, sorry." The guy didn't seem happy with what I had told him and asked me if he could have a loaf of bread and some milk. I told him I don't have any spare stock to give away as each order has been spoken for and paid for. The guy started getting really annoyed. I closed the backside door and locked it. I told him I was sorry and I had to go. But it was only 6 houses down the road from where we were. As I drove off, the guy yelled out, "Hey!" and he started chasing me, but then stopped. I kept driving and got to the next house. Once I got there, I did what I had to do and I walked back to the truck, and then I seen the man running towards me. I knew I had to drive off quick, otherwise he was going to bail me up. I decided to skip the next 2 houses and I drove into the next street I had to take. It was about a 5-minute walk from where the man was, so I knew I had lost him. It really freaked me out because at any given time while I was delivering the first drop on that street, that man could have taken off with the truck. He could have had a weapon on him. I didn't know what his intentions were. I guess the best case scenario happened, I suppose. About an hour later, I drove back to that street to drop off to those 2 houses that I missed earlier, and I had them already packed, so I could quickly jump out and drop them off and leave. Luckily, the 2 drops were next door to each other. I didn't end up seeing the man again that night, or any other night for that matter.